The automotive industry is a vital cog in the engine we call the U.S. economy. Between 2008 and 2010, business stalled for the big three automakers, putting them, as you may recall, at risk of bankruptcy. And a series of big loans by the federal government did help keep the wheels turning. But ever since, it's been a longer and winding road back to profitability. But there may be light at the end of the tunnel. Like the phoenix rising from the ashes, America's auto industry is roaring back to life. More jobs, low gas prices, and easy credit combine to create the perfect climate for buyers in the market for a new set of wheels. But these wheels hold up vehicles of the larger variety. Cars are taking a back seat to crossover SUVs and light trucks, and consumer demand is high. Automakers had plenty of reason to give thanks in the month of November as consumers bought over 1.3 million vehicles. That's a nearly 1.5% increase compared to the same time last year. If sales keep at this pace, 2015 could go down as the best on record. And someone who knows about the ebb and flow of the automotive business is Juanita Baranco. As co-owner of Mercedes Buckhead of Atlanta, she provides customers with some of the most luxurious cars around. Yet for many in Metro Atlanta, she also provides opportunity, as you'll see in today's Executive Profiles.
So let's go back to Shreveport, Louisiana.
My hometown.
You better believe it.
I went to a small high school in Shreveport, Louisiana, Notre Dame High School, Catholic high school. And there were 40 people in my class, roughly 250 people in the school.
LSU. What happened at LSU?
Well, you know, I went to LSU during the time of a lot of turmoil, quite frankly,
Right.
The civil rights movement, and sometimes people forget that the Vietnam War was going on. When Martin Luther King was killed, for instance, we stood there to get the flag lowered. But the point is at LSU, I had a great time. Now, don't let me give the wrong impression. We had fun at LSU, even during those turbulent times. By the time I got to law school, a great deal of that had calmed down, quite frankly. But I did go to LSU undergraduate as well as to law school.
You've always impressed me as a big vision person. Big intentions, big heart. Where along the way did you kind of make that transition from law school to a legal profession to what do I want to be when I grow up?
I think it was actually given to me out of smaller visions. My whole life was about doing small things for as many people that were in our circle. And so you take that same philosophy and put it on a larger playing field, and it's the same thing. There is no difference in my way of thinking. So I grew up that way. We were taught to give back, and that's what we did. Whatever we had, we shared, and that's how I was brought up.
And then you found love.
And then I fell in love with Gregory Baranco.
Early on in the game. So you find love, and then it's time to build a business and build a family.
Well, yeah, it's time to put food on the table. We were pretty young when we got married, and we were like, okay, what do we do now? I had always wanted to be in business. I also spent a lot of time in Grenada, Mississippi, which is my mother's hometown. My grandparents had a 400+ acre farm, which was, again, almost unheard of for African Americans. Well, I kind of got the yearning for business right there. And my father, who was a lawyer, owned a service station, and that's what they were called back then. It just seemed to me that if one of my goals was economic parity for African Americans, it occurred to me that the avenue to get that done was through business and business ownership. For my father, the service station, the filling station, as he called it, also was a way for economic parity. So I think somewhere in the back of my mind, I was thinking the automobile business. So when Gregory finished and he did an internship with Ford Motor Company, he said, what do you think about the automobile business? And I just perked up. I said, oh yeah, I had been working at that service station. I knew all about the back end of the operation. I was ready for it.
And Atlanta was the place to come?
We bought Smith Johnson Pontiac in East Point, Georgia. And Mr. Johnson and Mr. Smith were older. They were ready to get out of the business, had made all the money they wanted to make. But they wanted somebody to come in that would take care of their employees. That was the only thing they wanted. So they didn't want a lot of money for it, which we didn't have a lot of money. And we needed some employees. We didn't have any because we were moving from Baton Rouge to Atlanta. So it was a wonderful deal, probably the best deal I've ever made.
That's great. Beyond your success in life and in business and the wonderful person you are, your deep commitment to education is unparalleled. Where are we, in your mind, on the state of education in our community?
Well, my mother was a teacher. That's numero uno. And there is also a very strong connection between education and business. The two go hand in hand. Everybody knows that. When we first started, we opened that dealership. We ended up in DeKalb County on Covington Highway. We opened the dealership, and all of a sudden we started having a lot of people were keying the cars and just a lot of little mini vandalism type things. So we kind of I just marched over to the local high school and introduced myself to the principal and said, you know what, let's have a relationship. Let's have a partnership. And so all of a sudden, I started sending my employees, my husband and I did it as well, over there to teach classes. That was an early adopt-a-school program. I had never heard the concept of adopt-a-school. And guess what happened? All of that keying of the vehicle stopped, all of that little mini vandalism acts, all of those ceased. So I said, aha. I got involved with the PTA. As a result of that, I went to some seminar where they were literally discussing the value of teaching creationism versus Darwinism. And I kind of raised my hand and had a few comments to make. The next thing I know, I get a call from Joe Frank Harris's office saying, will you be on the State Board of Education? So it really just sort of snowballed, but I love to say it all started with the PTA. Just being involved with my children, again, you have that scenario from the small to the large. All I was doing was trying to make sure we had the Halloween carnival, and it ended up on the State Board of Education and then on the Board of Regents. There are a lot of challenges out here. One of the things, and one of the big challenges, is that many of our communities no longer value education. We've got to look at education not as an end in and of itself, but as a means to an end. That's where people like you have come from. We're educated. That's where I come from. So we need to put that out there in our communities, both minority and majority, frankly, that education is something that is to be valued, and it's worth something.
Juanita Baranco sits on the executive committee of the Buckhead Coalition. Last year, her Mercedes-Benz of Buckhead gave a monetary contribution to the Atlanta Community Food Bank for the Thanksgiving holiday. The donation was part of a community engagement effort that recognizes organizations that make a significant difference in the lives of the Atlanta community. Straight ahead, recent data shows people are moving to Atlanta in large numbers. But is the area really cheaper when it comes to the cost of living? To find out, we perform an affordability check, by the numbers, of course. Stay tuned. Atlanta Business Chronicles BIZ will be right back.